running fast, eh? Yeah, I didn't get one piece, but I guess that's what I was. Hey, Lewis. Well, thanks so much for coming out today, guys. It's going to be a great night. First off, that WWDC thing, who's going this year? Anyone? Yeah. It's probably not your first, I assume. Yeah. No, I would assume so. Anyone else? You're going? Okay, Ilya's going? Very good. You know, it's good, but I don't like the system of the Senate. It just it feels so almost like prison. Like you have to do it, and if you don't, you have to do it still. You know, I just want to know if I win and then plan around it. It seems a little bit rushed. I don't know, but it's if anyone hasn't been, I recommend highly you do go because it is awesome. I mean, it's the only time you can actually get face to face with Apple engineers, and as you learn, you actually learn they do like to communicate with you. Because my feeling with Apple when you deal with them is they kind of like have a wall in between you. You know, it's kind of like that what's that Catholic priest thing where you just kind of tell them your problems and you know they'll give you something in return. But here, yeah, confessions or whatever, right? But they're like super happy to sit down and see the cool stuff that their tools are producing. So it really is a wonderful experience. So I highly recommend it. Those who need the Wi-Fi, again, we got mob-guests. Password is go mobile, all lowercase, one word. First off, I want to say some really great words for our sponsors. Mobify, of course, in their beautiful place. Loki, did you want it?
No, just thanks for coming here, guys. Thank you. Glad I was against it.
You know what? I just want to send out some props for Loki because all I did was say he came to me and he said, "Yeah, I want to speak." I'm like, "That's awesome." And then I said, "Oh, by the way, you know, we're looking for a host. We'll just figure that out." And I got an email back like what 3 seconds later saying, "Hey, can we do it?"
Yes.
Done. So I really want to thank it. And also, this is one of my favorite offices in Vancouver, and I'm pretty sure you guys like to share this. So it is and on top of that, of course, we got the ever so benevolent help from Wavefront. As well, I want to put out the love for the executive companies. This is the team from the executive team that helps make all this happen. So Dynamic Leap, Radical.io, SAP. Never heard of them. TTT, Mojio, I don't know if you're any there. Ours, there we go. Woodshed, no, okay. Emily Carr, there we go, Dave. And BCITSA, which has taken me an entire year to say correctly for the first time. Woo, that feels good. So again, we've got the executives, just so you know our faces. If you ever have any questions, ever want to speak, you know, myself, Andre, Ian, AJ, Alexander, Ashish, and where is it? Somewhere around. Alvors, of course. Mitchell in the back, looking like the study is. Samia, or I was going to name him somewhere. Dave, and Roland is not here. Okay, but thank you, because you guys do a lot of work to make sure all these events happen, and I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone else. So we're going to start off with some announcements, as we always do. So what is an announcement? Well, basically, if you have anything that you want to share within the community, so a new meetup group, a hackathon, Kickstarter campaign, conference, courses, I'm sure there's new things that have been added, new topics since, come, email me, share some love. Just 1 minute just to talk about your event. As well, we have a Slack channel. For those who are not on the Slack channel, I highly recommend you do get on it with us. Because it's a great way to share questions, information. You got a bug, hey, just ping one of us, it will get fixed. So please sign up. So it's vanidev.slack.com. And if you need to get on there, just do, Chris at VanIdev, right? I think, yeah, Chris at vanidev.com.
Jesus.
Yeah,
okay.
I am Jesus. Yeah, I don't know. Am I David? I don't know. Yeah, only some of you will get that joke. Okay. As well, we've got a wonderful social media presence. Thank you to the wonderful Anna here. So please share it, use it. Let's all leverage and benefit from it. First off, Startups Care. And I saw that Mobify is already one of the companies in this. So as we all know, something awful has been happening in Alberta. Not only is it the price of oil dropping and kicking everyone in the nards there, but then it all burned up. So if you want to show some love and you want to do it through this is an organization here called Startups Care, and I've got the QR card. So if you ever did want to give any money or love or anything like that, startups, www.startups-care.com. It's a great way to start. As well, we have an organization called Van Hack. That's not Van Hacks, that's Van Hack. With Ilya, why don't you come up and say a few words about what's happening there?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it was really funny when I found out that there was a Van Hacks that hacked I made, so I reached out to Chris. And here I am. I just want to quickly say hi. My name is Ilya. I'm a local entrepreneur here in Vancouver. Spent 4 years down in South America. Moved back home and found it was really tough to get in the market. And at the same time, all my friends from Brazil were asking, how do I get jobs in Canada? And then a lot of companies were looking for developers. So I had this idea, and now it's called Van Hack. We're running a virtual hackathon. We've got about 450 developers and designers signed up. They're going to be working on projects, companies like Axiom Zen, Shopify, Hootsuite, and a ton of other smaller startups. Our goal is to really connect smaller startups with talent that's kind of looking to break into the market. Guys like Solo, who's here, one of our customers from Brazil. A lot of times these guys come here and they are studying or doing something that isn't really what they can be doing, which is developing apps for companies. So if you want to talk to them, talk to me, just go to vanhack.com and I'll be around. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really going for this QR thing today. As well, UBC MBA study, just wanted to tell you it's 10 questions, real simply. Ask me again to put this up there. It's just how do people communicate in and outside the work environment and identify methods to improve these interactions. If you want to take it, I'll leave it at that. iNews, a lot of cool stuff happening in the Apple world, sort of, you know. First off, who's already signed up with Apple Pay? Who's used it though?
Yes.
Have you used it yet?
Oh yeah.
You have, eh?
Right away.
Yeah. Where?
Just ran across the street like shoppers and bought some jerky.
Just for it, right?
Just for it.
It's like the
Yeah,
change.
today I used it for like a Mars bar.
Oh man.
I didn't like want to eat it.
Exactly.
The dollar store, the sandwich shop, everywhere.
They do. Okay, that's fantastic. I know I've had it on my American Express for a while now. And it's really awesome. But the thing I like about Apple Pay that they may not talk about is every time a transaction is made with that credit card, I get a notification. And that's the part I love. It hasn't worked yet with this one. I don't know if they haven't turned that on with the banks or not yet, because I don't seem to be getting it. You are getting it?
Yeah.
Okay, because on my CIBC visa, I'm not getting any trails. But it's so reassuring to know that if a transaction is happening, you get an instant message on it. And that's what I consider the killer app. I mean, we already got the touch stuff, that's kind of cool, but just having that more sense of security is wonderful.
I paid with my watch.
Did you really? Jealous. I'm still waiting for the damn watch too, but so anyhow, RBC and CIBC are out now. TD, Canada Trust, Scotiabank, and BMO expected in June. Any of them. And I love how they just announced it too. It's like, oh, by the way, it's here. That's awesome. Everyone's running to go do it. As well, has anyone seen this? This is the start to something interesting. The Apple Music API. Has anyone seen this at all or played with it? Yeah, no surprise. Yeah, okay. It's kind of limiting still, but it's a good start because I want to start getting some of these APIs that are built right into some of the services Apple's doing. So the Apple Music API gives developers the resources to expand Apple Music functionality in their apps through the following features. Developers can see if a user is currently a member. Developers can see which country the user's account is based. Developers can queue up the next song or songs based on a song ID for playback. As well, they can inspect playlists already in My Music or create new music or playlists with the title and the description. As well, and this is a fun thing, it's always Apple's guidelines, which limit everything. Using the Apple Music API are subject to the following restrictions. So apps using Apple Music API that trigger playback without explicit user action will be rejected. That's kind of like how they do all the communications too, so there's no real surprise with that. As well, apps using the Apple Music API must expose and respect standard media controls such as play, pause, and skip. And apps using the Apple Music API may not require payment or otherwise monetize access to the Apple Music service. That's pretty straightforward. They don't want you paying for what you've already paid for. Anyhow, I love the fact that it's a start. Sorry, what's it not good?
She's gonna make money.
Of course, Apple makes money. Oops, no.
That's the appropriate gesture.
You like it? That was my Windows box one.
What's with the green?
Sorry. Oh, is it doing it again?
Oh, they're really
Yeah,
Yeah, you gave up too quick.
yeah. My kids go to Catholic school, but anyhow. So anyhow, this is also interesting. So Apple's looking to extend into the enterprise even more than IBM, or their deal with the IBM. This makes a lot of sense. I mean, SAP, they're everywhere. Big European, I mean, I'm sure you guys all know what SAP is. But that is going to be huge on the bottom line of both companies. As well, this is kind of interesting. Another kind of chink in the armor here. So iBook Store and iTunes movie services are suspended in China and still haven't gone back up. Apple thinks they're going back up, but I have a feeling they're not. I have a feeling this is China about to exert their cultural control over things. And Apple might be a little nervous because clearly the last growth that they've been having over the last years has been in China. And India, they're looking at right now, but it's just not the same market as China. So that is interesting. As well, the world is, being destroyed. It's all coming down. So Apple reported its first year-over-year decline since 2003. So their stock took a hit, but let's get real. They can still buy every one of the competitors pretty much. So when your decline is, oh my gosh, we only did 50 billion in revenue this quarter. Yeah, good. It's a hard thing to complain about. But well, you can see in this chart, but I think this chart's even more telling how important iPhone is. That's 65% of their business. Now the services I did read have been growing quite a bit, but that's 65% of that $50 billion. This is very important to them. And as as the 6, the 6 came out, the 6S wasn't anything too new, and I'm reading the 7 might not be that much more interesting too. I think they're going to have to start making some more interesting things. And this is where you actually get into something that's quite interesting, because it's the R&D spending is just skyrocketing right now. So they estimate it to be about $10 billion for this year. But this is what's interesting is this pivot point. So they're saying, okay, they're looking for new markets. Obviously, it's the car. It's kind of one of those everyone knows, no one knows sort of secrets. But they must have started somewhere around here, I assume. With what's called Project Titan. And then, boom, it's expensive to compete with Ford. Okay? But this is interesting because who the heck is not going to want to have an Apple car when it comes out? Like, as long as it's not the price of 6 BMWs. I mean, yes, we're all going to want this car. And who knows? Maybe they'll do that. Maybe they, where the Teslas, the newest Tesla, I mean, they sold crazy. Was it 400K or 400,000 of them already? It's all based on low price. But who knows? Has Apple ever competed on price? Nah, they compete on experience. So it's going to be interesting. As well, this was a bit of a shock. I mean, I got this from Apple, so who knows? But the last month when I looked into this, iOS 9 adoption rate was at 78%. So it's gone up 6% this month. No one really cares about the other ones. But that's a pretty big jump to say that forget any iOS 7 or anything like that. I actually had to build it. I had a client that, oh God, I hate this client. I honestly actually hate him, so we had to sue him to pay us. And then he actually emailed me today going, hey, can you make me that build again? Because it's not working on my phone. I'm like, fuck, it was in 2012. It's 2012. Like, the code is like iOS 4. How am I going to make this build? Well, anyhow, we made it build. But, that's just my story today.
The jumps.
Okay, no. Thank you, yes, I should.
The jump corresponds with the most little one.
SE, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You see like the old OSs and the old devices actually drop the same proportion as iOS 9 goes up.
But how's the sales of the SE? Because I actually didn't really get
Supply constraint, so that means that more people are buying, as many people are buying them as they can sell.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's what that is. As SE people were not upgrading their old like iPhone 4s.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, no, I think you're bang on right about that. That's really cool. Okay, hi Candy. We got some fun tonight. First off, we got Nick Chow from Axiom Zen. Nick, talking to us about Tolera. So Nick, you can either touch the button or touch this. Either works for me. I'll leave it to you, Nick. I'm walking away. Nick,
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Nick Chow. I'm a product director at Axiom Zen, and I wanted to talk to you about Tolera, a project we've been working on for the past 4 or 5 months. When we started Tolera, we really can't touch that. That's cool. When we first started Tolera, we set out to solve one thing, and that's how do we screen resumes efficiently? We go through over 6,000 resumes a year, and we do that we take that very seriously. So people whose full-time job isn't recruiting generally tend to look at those resumes. And what we found is that the things we looked at, the the apps we looked at tended to be not mobile first, or tended to be really hard to use. Now that seems kind of like a really trite argument, but in fact it's had some serious implications, right? Because if you have to create some time in order to go review some resumes, and that happens, once a week maybe, and then all of a sudden our response rates were in the order of weeks as opposed to the order of days. We found we were not able to respond quickly enough using traditional apps, so we built a thing. What we did was we focused on being able to screen efficiently and quickly with all the information you needed, and that led us to some really interesting places. One, having something that was super intuitive and of course mobile first, but also other little interesting things like automating finding websites or social media links like LinkedIn sites. This we found really helped with that. The second thing, of course, we found was being able to just really focus on that idea of this human decision, this idea that if you get rid of all the cruft, if you get rid of all the meta work, all the meta information you need, all you really wanted to do was one thing, and that was say yes or say no to a candidate, and that was it. And when we came to that realization, it was almost enlightening. We were able to focus this really precise, really specific kind of experience in business, which is the crazy part. And so we thought about that, and we found that we had two criteria. All we wanted was something that was mobile first and something that was not terrible to use. And what was crazy was that didn't exist out there. And we found that we're not the only ones. I found that 4 out of 5 people who use enterprise apps abandoned it after the first try because it was too awful to use, more or less. That is crazy. There's this huge opportunity as more and more business tools tend to move towards mobile. More and more business tools are expected to be where people are, which is on mobile. And people pick these tools up, and 4 out of 5 of them just stop using them right away because they're that bad. There's a huge opportunity for not just us, not just me, not just Tolera, but for all of us as iOS developers, as mobile developers. And I think that was really exciting. So we decided to release this to kind of the world. And it turns out that we weren't the only ones who were really excited about this. Apple featured us the week we released. They were super stoked about us as well. And ever since then, we've been growing. We've been growing in users, we've been growing in businesses who've wanted just that kind of intuitive and mobile-first experiences. And that's not to say we're done either. Our next step, and I'm really excited to share this with you guys the next or the kind of meetup after. But next, we're looking towards kind of the more medium and large-sized business problems, and that's getting closer to finding really good quality candidates using that same 2 metrics, something that's intuitive to use and something that's mobile first. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to share that with you. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to talk to you about kind of mobile first business tools. Thanks, guys.
Resumes get into this?
We're doing it traditionally through email right now. So if somebody wants to apply, yep, just email, and that way it's super easy to set up. You just forward your email, and and you're connected.
Any other questions?
Have you found that in practice that the people who are using this are primarily using it on the go, or are people using it after desk? You might not have an answer question, but are they using it after desks just because they prefer a mobile interface to a desktop site?
So that's a really great question, and that's something we did look at. We found that something like this is almost akin to a text message or an email. It's something that you can answer within the interstitials of your day.
Right.
So instead of having to sit down and carve that time out, you're able to, in between meetings, if someone's late, you might be close to your computer, you might be next to your computer, but you get that, that notification that, oh, I've got 5 people to review, I might as well do well in waiting for this meeting. And so that response time just skyrockets. And I think that's the power of mobile for not just resume review, but all enterprise.
Question. Did you do those slides, or did you have someone, a designer, do the slides?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I could take credit. The designer picked the colors, the designer did all the outline, but I actually kind of made the slides.
I actually say that because I want you guys actually to learn about something that's really important. Is one thing I love about Axioms is everything is design first, and it's something that I really believe in, and I've never seen anything that doesn't follow that principle, and it's right on target. So I just wanted to mention that actually is everything you're doing is showing that you guys are professional and bang on, want to have a great experience and give your customers a great experience. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions?
If anyone does, I'd love to chat with them after the presentations. Thank you again.
Drew, right there. Drew, sorry, Bob Bright? Yeah, good. I should know this one. From ViDIA.
Good evening, everyone. All right. Put my notes because I am not on point like that.
Oh, I need that. That's smart.
Good evening. My name is Drew, so I'm here to talk to you about our app that we are just about to launch today, or pretty soon, called View. View is a new app which will change the mobile dating landscape. This is not a simple iteration of the existing sort of paradigm, which most apps are right now. We're reimagining what it means for real human beings to connect in the 21st century. Every aspect of our product revolves around being authentic. For us, that means providing tools and a forum to express yourself in whichever fashion you want. You're not constrained to a form, a survey, or your Facebook profile. You can be whoever you want to be, whenever you want. That might seem contradictory with our fundamental principle, but self-expression is the purest form of authenticity. Sometimes who we really are isn't represented by our social presence. In real life, you go from noticing someone from across the room, you make eye contact, you smile. You walk over there and you ask permission to talk to them. Now it's just you and that person in a room full of people. If you turn around and start talking to the person behind you, is that first person going to be there when you turn back? Probably not. So we try to represent the essence of meeting people in real life. That means adding constraints, but in reality, these are very important to create a meaningful connection. Think about how Twitter's character count or Instagram's format brought out creativity to people. Drawing a chat over the course of weeks, when you know that they're playing other people, is fundamentally artificial. In View, you match chat and exchange numbers to continue the connection over the course of a night. When you're out at night with your friends, you're mentally primed to meet other people. Alright, let's see if I can get this down over. So I just did a screen capture today. This is a live screen capture of the app. And so I'm just going to go through our sort of onboarding process where we try to talk about our core principles, get people to try to understand as much as we can about what we're trying to accomplish. Now what you notice is that we don't ask you to fill out a survey, we don't ask you to connect to your Facebook, we don't actually really care about any of that. We want you to feel like you can be comfortable. We want you to feel comfortable knowing that we're not trying to harvest information. The only thing we ask is your phone number because we want to just verify that you're a real person. And we also use that to sort of block you if you're reported and violate sort of abuse constraints. And we're using Twitter's digits service in order to handle this phone number authentication. And so obviously we would like your location because it is a very heavily location-based service. It's all about where you are, and then obviously some push so that we can notify you. So you start off with a blank canvas. And similar to like a Snapchat, we ask you to create a temporary video or picture which represents who you are right now. And every single time you do that, it gets broadcasted out to individuals around you. And so, nice little looping photo. You got your filters, and you can add text. So we want to encourage you to really express yourself in whatever way you want. Yeah, I know. And so, at any time you want, we allow you to change your settings. Like if you want to change who you're looking for that night, that's fine. And so now you get to sort of the typical swipe paradigm, which works. And the idea that you can swipe without really having to put yourself out there for rejection, that actually works. We don't get rid of that. So now you've matched with someone, and now we ask you, okay, well, what is your name? Because we need to do an introduction. And so at this point, your name is actually sent to the other person, but we don't really keep that in our system at all. So you can change your name every single time if you want. And again, it's all about self-expression. And so now you're in a chat, and the thing about the app is that you can only have one chat at a time. And this is because in real life, you need to have, if you want to have a meaningful connection, you have to have a meaningful conversation with someone. And you know, it's all a big, you know, we want to allow you to do lots of videos and pictures and text. It's up to you what you want to do. And so this takes you back to what we call the view. And the view is just like you're at a bar, and it's basically the scene around you. You swipe on people, and you're allowed to respond to them with a brand new photo, and they'll get that. They won't know that it's from you. And then when you are in a chat and you want to connect with them, you can actually swap your number with them. So you present your number to them, and if they want to do a mutual exchange, then it unlocks the numbers on both ends. And so we actually want to almost encourage you to get off of the app, because we're not there to be your communication channel. We're just there to sort of almost be a wingman. And so you can see, you know, we tell you like when they were last there, so you can make these kind of decisions as to whether or not you want to wait for them to accept your chat. And so let's see if it gets to this point. The very last thing that that we have is, I think is pretty cool, is we have this integrated survey system where it's in-app, and we can actually go and directly basically ask questions about segments of our users. We can segment them. We can say people who did this certain thing or fall into this kind of demographic. We want to send them this specific survey to get product feedback, so that we can really rapidly iterate. All right, so that is that. So just real quick about the technology. It's all written in Swift. The app it was really important for me for the app to function seamlessly offline and online. So any network request is serialized, persisted to disk if you're offline, and then as soon as you get a network connection, it sends it off. And then we take advantage of silent push notifications, where you can actually push data with a background update flag, and it will actually activate your app, and you get an opportunity, a little window of time to do any sort of network request that you need to do. If you want to do a subsequent lock screen push notification, you can create your own local notification. So it's really powerful for us to actually send data from the server to the device and know that it will get there without having to do any polling, and if the app is not in the background. Because we expect our users to not always have the app launched all the time. It's always going to be in the background. And the back end is it's a serverless microservice architecture. So we're making heavy use of Amazon's Lambdas, and we're using all of their service. So we don't have any EC2 instances. We're not running on, we're not basically, there's no scaling issues because everything is just service-based. So native iOS Lambda calls, SNS for routing, and then we push back into Amazon push services to get the data back to the devices. So we are launching in June, in a month, in Whistler exclusively. It's the perfect location for us because it's lots of young people in a very condensed, tight village full of bars, pubs, restaurants, nightclubs. And so keep your eye out for us, and come check out our site, and you can sign up to get a notification when we're launching.
Any questions at all?
How do you limit it to Whistler?
I don't know if anyone has ever seen a geohash algorithm. It's a deterministic algorithm that turns the latitude and longitude into a character string, and then you can just basically truncate off in order to adjust your level of granularity. And so when the device sends a location update to the server, we basically turn that into a geohash, hit a search index to find out if we're launched in that area, and that sends back to the device what your launch area is. And so if you're not in Whistler, it'll basically say, sorry, you're not there. But what we want you to do is still have the experience. So you will still be able to be a spectator in the app. So you can still see what's happening at any given place in Whistler. It's very venue-based as well. So you can actually drill into a specific club and just watch what's going on at that club. But you can't actually match anyone if you're not in Whistler.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so, I just want to touch on something. The design looks fantastic. I mean, that looks really modern. And I was reading an article today that I thought was really interesting. Basically, it was the information age is dead. Like, how many times When's the last time, I don't know if you read this too, yeah. When was the last time you posted to Facebook, basically? I mean, I don't, I consume, I don't post really. And so the whole idea is it's not the information age anymore, it's the experience age, and the mobile devices allow us to do that. I really see that whole principle in what you're doing here. So we're sharing, we're sharing the experience that we are doing through live cam, through real-time communication, through geo-positioning, and not just, you know, sharing a thought past the experience.
Yeah,
So it's
and
interesting.
tomorrow, well, basically what you created yesterday doesn't exist anymore. It's all ephemeral.
It's superfluous. Yeah. No, excellent. Thank you. Thanks so much. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got, please, Rodrigo, if I say it wrong, Rodrigo Mora Gonzalez. There we go. I'm sorry. Talking about sharing ideas. So, Rodrigo, please.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I will present my app that I built. I will present my app that I built last October as my final project at my house labs. I built it in 2 weeks, and I want to share a little bit with you. So, the app is a social platform to spread apps ideas. For example, a user, user in this case is a non-developer, it's a consumer user. For example, oh, I'm in a bookstore, I would like to buy a gift for a friend. There are a lot of books, but which one I would like to buy? I don't know, I would like you to see the reviews at least. And maybe if you have an app to scan the cover or type the title, whatever, and show me, oh, this is the best book, why or not. Really interesting. Though the user will go to share ideas, type the idea, oh, I would like to have to do this, to do that. And it was very directed, just 300 charts. And the entire idea the user can read in the main screen. It's not necessary to step in the video, just to see the detail. The detail view. And the thing is, this is a view from a developer view. There is the interest switch. The developer can set, oh, this is cool. I would like to go further in this. I'm interested in it or something. And the developer can set interest. The user can share the idea, for example, oh, I like this idea. There is an app to do this. I will also download and use. And also can comment, short comment. And how many shares and how many interests create a rank. The idea is most shared by user, the idea is most interested by developers. There is a short video.
Yeah. Just like.
Create a new idea. Another one, share, type a comment. The comment is there. There is a search function. We can search by title, by the content, by location, just ideas from the Retriever, and also. The time I built in Objective-C, I use parcel as a backend, push notifications, notification. There's clear integration for logging, and some libraries from protocols. Most of the time building this app, I spend in the view, especially the main view, it's a dynamic collection view. It takes all the time to do that great. And also the comments, to add the comments, it's not sweet, keyboard, and this kind of stuff taking some time, but everything else on the console. That's it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I guess we had a presentation as well from someone who did from iOS Labs last session, and I love when you guys share. I think it's wonderful because you spend a lot of time just learning all the technology and getting it, into your head. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to share it here. So thank you very, very much. Jeremy, how old is he? So you just need you. I'll just use that. Let's go. Oops, you don't know. I'm going to just sneak my way out. Perfect. Okay, thanks.
All right, hi everybody. I'm Jeremy Weed. We're going to be talking about WK WebView today and talk a little bit about what it is, displaying web content in iOS apps, and then some of the fun things you'll run into when you try to use it. So, my name is Jeremy Weed, as I said. I'm a senior engineer here at Mobilify. I've been here for just over a year. I'm working on our SDK team where we're building an SDK that will help you build apps hopefully faster and be able to target both iOS and Android at the same time. Not like Cordova, not like React Native, a little bit different. So let's go back to kind of the beginning. iOS 2.0, Apple introduced a web view called UI WebView. It was originally introduced in iOS 2. Historically, that was the only way that you could really display web content in an iOS app, unless you wanted to parse it and render it yourself, which I think is a rabbit hole of craziness. But that was the only way you could display web content. And in fact, some of the iOS components that ship with iOS were actually built on top of WebView. For instance, the text view. It no longer is, from what I've read, but originally the text view was built on UI WebView. So, you probably remember this. Back in the day, Facebook was basically a thin wrapper around the UI WebView, and you could sometimes tell that quite obviously. A good thing to know is that UI WebView is not Safari. Safari is a lot faster. The engines are quite different. And UI WebView is picking up a little bit now in iOS 9, but Safari will still render and load websites quite a bit quicker than a UI WebView. Because they're different code bases, UI WebView doesn't get the same, I guess, love that Safari does, and so you don't get bug fixes, you don't get performance increases and stuff that Safari sees nearly as often in UI WebView. This one, if you've ever worked with UI WebView a lot, you'll be very familiar with. It crashes like crazy. It'll take down your app for the craziest reasons, like if you use a CSS transform in your WebView incorrectly, boom, there goes your whole app. And it leaks memory, so it can leak memory through the pages that you load to, not just because you're misusing it. So it's lots of fun. And it also has this really fun bug where it will block image loading and it will block image animations in pages that you display in it. So if you've got an animated GIF and you start scrolling and you hold your finger down, you get no animation until you lift your finger. There is a small workaround you can do for that, but basically if you're hosting other people's content, you're at the mercy of the WebView to decide when it resumes loading and animating. And like I said, it's not the same JavaScript engine as Safari, so different code bases, different constraints, different behavior in a few cases, and not as performant. So, why doesn't the UI WebView have the Nitro engine, which is in Safari? The cynical answer is because Apple doesn't want you to use web technologies. The biggest thing was like iOS 4, I believe, is when they allowed you to save web pages to your home screen. The performance between that and the same site in Safari was hugely different. And it was because they were using a different engine. So the real answer is Apple says it's more because of security. because you're downloading JavaScript from who knows where, and at some point you're going to get it to run on your device as executable code. So their reasoning is that because you have to mark pages in RAM as executable when you run JavaScript, to let any application do that is a big security risk, because you're not just marking the JavaScript as executable pages. It could be any page that your app decides could become executable, and so there's an attack vector there. Whether that's true or not is somewhat hearsay, but I think it's probably fairly reliable. So that's UI WebView. People were complaining and it was slow. It wasn't the same as Safari, so Apple in iOS 8 introduced WK WebView. It gives you basically the same performance as Safari for most cases. And the neat thing is that it's rendered out of process. So you no longer have your web rendering tied to your app where it can like take it down if something triggers a bug in the web processing or the web rendering. You have a separate process and you no longer have your app going down because of that. WK in WK WebView stands for WebKit. It's the WebKit is the underlying technology that drives WK WebView. So WebKit is the rendering engine, and then WK WebView sits on top of that to provide the iOS component that we can use. It's also the same engine that drives Safari and some other technologies and some other apps. So what are the benefits of WK WebView? The first is that you get much better HTML5 support. This is a little bit dated, but I checked it today and it still lags behind. UI WebView still lags behind WK WebView by a decent amount, so you aren't going to have all the same HTML5 features that you might want to use. In some cases you can polyfill them, but not in all cases. You also get pretty good performance gains in WebGL. I'm not sure if a lot of people, or a lot of you are using WebGL, but you might be wanting to display WebGL content in your app, and so a better choice is WK WebView. Lastly, it's less crashy. Like I said, UI WebView will go down for the most random reasons with the HTML and CSS that you throw at it. WK WebView is a lot more performant and a lot more resilient to the different things you might have it render. A few more benefits. Much faster JavaScript and page rendering, 60 frames per second interactive scrolling. So like I said, UI WebView will pause all animations as you scroll, and it'll pause image loading. WK WebView doesn't have that problem. It will just continue loading if you start scrolling. There's a much better communication mechanism between the native part and the JavaScript. In UI WebView, you basically have to jury rig URL loading to communicate back to the native side, but in WK WebView, you can actually surface native methods to the JavaScript environment so that you can just call from the native side directly into the WebView or the JavaScript environment, which is very similar to Android. So because WK WebView is based on WebKit, you get the same JavaScript engine that Safari has. So theoretically, you get more up-to-date execution or more up-to-date implementations. You're still dependent on the version of the SDK that you're compiling with. It's not like you get free upgrades when your OS upgrades, but you do get a better engine that's, I guess, got more attention. So how do you implement WK WebView? Well, don't worry, it's Apple. They have lots of great documentation, and it's always really top-notch. Look at WK WebView. This is kind of maybe hard to see, but there's that scroll view, and you can see they have a nice preamble and go down, and there's lots of good documentation. WK WebView, you get 2 sentences and your API. Go. You know, so maybe there's not a lot of documentation. Stack Overflow might be your good friend in a while after you start implementing WK WebView. With introducing UI WebView, they took a class and a protocol and exploded it into 14 classes and 3 protocols. You do have a lot more control over a lot of different aspects of loading your web content and it rendering, but it's more complex. So yeah, other than that bare API documentation, there's no document from Apple like the way they have around view controllers that really tells you about like Apple's theory about how view controllers should work and how you interact with them. So basically, Stack Overflow, like I said. There's a snapshot of what you have to deal with when you come to WK WebView. Fortunately, once you work with it for a bit, you can ignore a lot of that. But yeah, instead of 2, you have that. So one other thing about WK WebView is that some of the things that were automatically handled by UI WebView are now something you have to do manually. We ran into a few of these. Actually, we ran into all of them, which is why I'm here. So, for instance, App Store links. If you give a link to like the iTunes store for an app, and you load it in UI WebView, it will bounce you to the App Store app and just take you to that app. WK WebView, no, you just get navigated to a blank screen, and there you go. So we had to implement a way to intercept that and then bounce the user manually to the App Store, which isn't that hard, but the first time you hit it, you're sitting there, why do I have a blank screen? Because you're used to UI WebView. Another thing is that whereas with UI WebView, if you say alert in JavaScript, you get the modal and you get what you said alert in the JavaScript. With WK WebView, those all become delegate callbacks that you have to implement yourself. So if somebody says alert in JavaScript, you get a delegate callback in your native code that you can then do whatever you want with. Again, more manual implementation. The other thing is that in UI WebView, all the cookies in the app, or all the web views in the app, share the same cookie container, basically. With WK WebView, again, you have more power over that, so you can decide which web views should share cookies and which ones shouldn't. So if you want to basically create an incognito WK WebView, you can do that. Whereas in UI WebView, that wasn't possible. So we're going to go through and look at 7 disappointments of WK WebView. Some of that was kind of early adopter pain. Some of it's now resolved. But we're going to go through just for fun and talk about it. So hopefully you guys can learn what to avoid. So the first thing is that when WK WebView came out, you couldn't load content that you had bundled with your app. A lot of people, when they ship an app, they might want to have an HTML page bundled with their app that just lets you display some text. Writing native code to render a simple page of text is not probably your best way to spend your time when you can just have an HTML page and just load it in a web view and you're done. Especially if you want to style the content. So UI WebView, you can just say load request, give it a file URL, and you're done. With WK WebView, what we basically do is we have to copy it to a different place because the WK WebView can access some parts of the file system. You have to move it to a different place and then you can load it. Or you can run a web server in your app. That makes sense, right? You'd be surprised how many apps have web servers in them. I know Firefox does. But yeah, the solution in iOS 9 was fixed, so they have a load file URL, and it works. But just for fun, that's the fun we had to go through to actually move the file to the right place and then load it there. So I'm not expecting you to read that and parse it, but just an example. So the next thing is that you can intercept post requests. One of the things that our framework does is we use a new web view every time you navigate because we put them in the navigation controller so that you get the nice navigation effects and like swipe to go back. And every time you get the first callback that the web view gives you that says the user tapped on the link, you get a URL request in the delegate callback to say, should I navigate to this new URL? If the user has posted data through a form, you get the URL request, but the post data is nowhere to be seen. If you take that request and hand it off to a new web view, there's no post data that gets sent. So there's basically no way to capture the post data and
redirected to a different web view, which is, in our case, something we wanted to do, and possibly something other people would want to do. So the solution for now is just leave it. We never do that scenario where we take a post and move it to a different web view. We always let it happen in the same one. The WebKit forums seem to indicate that they might be working and fixing this bug, which would be really nice. The next thing is WK WebView does not implement state preservation. I'm not sure how common it is for people to implement it, but if you depend on state restoration or preservation and restoration APIs like restore state and save state, you can't. In UI WebView, you could do that and get your WebView back to exactly the same state by just saving the state to an NS data object. You can throw away the WebView, you can recreate it, give the NS data back to that WebView, to the new WebView, and just tell it to reload, and you can be back to the same scroll position, same URL, exact same state. In WK WebView, that is just, it doesn't implement that. So the best you can do is capture the URL, and then possibly with some JavaScript capture the scroll position and restore the scroll position by re-injecting a call to say scroll to this location. But it's not perfect. Number 4, the white screen of death. I think every technology has a screen of death, just differs in color. So what we were seeing is when we would stack these web views, sometimes down the stack, all of a sudden when we'd unstack them, they would just be blank. And their URL would actually be above blank. Thanks Apple for navigating me to above blank. I needed that. But it appears to be a memory issue in the rendering process. If it goes down, then your web view will just be a white screen, or it'll navigate to above blank. There doesn't seem to be a solution for that, except for we just pull the web views that we have on our stack, and if they look like they are dead, we just reload them. So we kind of took out a hammer on that approach, but it works, and it's better than the user coming back to a blank screen when they start navigating backwards. We had some other fun. We found that sometimes a view would load and just scroll down partway. No reason why. That's always lots of fun. But it happens when the frame is not set before load completes. And if you're loading content that you don't control, that's a problem. Because what are you going to do about it? Set up a proxy on your phone and run it through and inspect all the HTML and fix it? It's probably not that feasible. So we came up with a solution, which actually is one thing that WK WebView allowed us to do, is that you can register JavaScript to run at different points in the load lifecycle. And you can register custom JavaScript. So what we did was we have this start source string here. And basically what we do is using, it's called a user content controller. We attach it to the web view, and we tell it to load before the document starts. So before the HTML element is even seen, we actually create our own HTML and head element, and we just put it in there. And when the real document comes in, WK WebView just ignores the HTML and the head element that are in the new document. So far it seems to work. It seems to be more resilient to malformed HTML than UI WebView was, so I don't see it breaking, but with everything we just fix it. But that's a real problem, is the scrolling. So number 6, the second last item, is that the view won't render until it's visible. So if you want to go and preload a web view off screen and then display it when it's ready, instead of having it sit there and load, or maybe have a spinner that sits there and the user just gets frustrated because they're looking at the spinner, you load it off screen, and then when it's ready, you bring it on screen. And WK WebView will help you by not loading that content until it's on screen. Not really. So the solution is that we built an off-screen, we call it a holding pen, which is down in the view hierarchy so you can't see it. And we throw the web views in there, and when their view did disappear, or view will view did disappear happens. So we put them in this holding pen, and then they can load and do everything they need, and when view will appear is going to happen on its view controller, we just bring it back. It sounds kind of crazy, but it works quite well. This works great for if you have like hamburger menus. Sorry, I know that's a 4-letter word, but if you have hamburger menus and you've got customers who insist on them, you can have a web view, and we just put it in the holding pen area, and then we can load it, and it'll actually be ready when you open the sidebar. So the last item is that you can't load content from sites that use a broken or a self-signed certificate. Basically, anything that would that the WebView or the OS wouldn't trust as far as like the security of the certificate, it just won't load. But WK WebView gives you a great API to manage that right here. It did receive authentication challenge with completion handler. Except in an iOS 8, it never got called. So we dutifully implemented that method, and we waited and waited and waited. And Carl tried everything he could to get it to work, and it just was never called. And then in iOS 9, all of a sudden it worked. So, you know, we deal with a lot of clients who have QA environments that are a complete gong show. And it can be a real problem when your app can't load content from the QA server just because the certificate is messed up, or it's expired, or it's from some certificate vendor in who knows where that isn't trusted by your device. But it's a problem. There is no workaround for iOS 8, so our SDK does not use WK WebView in iOS 8, period. So we found some other fun things. When the app is sent to the background, you're familiar with background tasks, or the grace period that your app has when it goes to the background to finish up some tasks and then be suspended. With WK WebView, you get about 3 seconds, about 10 seconds, and then it just stops. Your other parts of your native code or even UI WebView code might be running, but WK WebView just says, no, I'm done. It stops, which is awesome. Unlike UI WebView, this one really is kind of fun. When you start navigating a WebView, with UI WebView, when you get your delegate callbacks, the URL is still the URL that you successfully loaded last. With WK WebView, it immediately changes the URL so that if you want to say, like, well, is this URL different from the one I just loaded? You have no idea, because the request that you're loading has the same URL as what the WebView says you're on. And so you have to now track which URL you last loaded successfully, and then you can compare. It's not a huge amount of work, but it's kind of annoying that they change it so aggressively. Yeah, and last but not least, I told you about the App Store links not working by default. You have to bounce to the store yourself. So is anyone using it? Well, Firefox is, Chrome is, and we are in our app SDK. One of the fun things to know is that if you aren't familiar with it, you cannot write your own WebView and ship it along with iOS, or with an app in iOS. I think a lot of people would probably take the road of just compiling Chrome into their app and ship it, but Apple will not allow that in the App Store. So you have UI WebView or WK WebView, and I think WK WebView is a much better choice if you're doing any web rendering with the previous caveats. So this is our page for our Astro project, we call it. It's an app SDK. If you're interested, you can reach it at astro.modify.com. There's a tutorial you can walk through if you're curious about it. And yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, my name is Shani. Not sure if it's a loaded question or not, but what are your views on the comparison between WK WebView versus SF Safari?
Okay, the question is, what's my view on comparing the WK WebView and the Safari view controller? the SF Safari View Controller. Safari View Controller is a much higher level object. You can show it, you can tell it what initial URL to go to, and you're hands off. WK WebView, you have a lot more control. It's Chromeless, so you can do whatever you want with it as far as having Chrome or no Chrome on it. Basically, it's a frame that has web content, and you are in charge of doing almost everything. But Safari View Controller is much better for if you just want to, maybe you have an external site that you want to link to from your app. You can open SF Safari View Controller, navigate there, and the user can browse. The other nice thing is that SF Safari View Controller shares cookies and I think all the other information with your main Safari app. So if you take the user to a site that they've already logged in on in Safari, they'll be logged in there. Any other questions?
Yeah. What are you guys trying to accomplish by this Astro project? What's different compared to React Native and
So, two questions. What are we trying to do with our SDK and what's different between it and something like React Native? We're trying to lower the build times for apps we build for our customers, but still make the apps feel as native as possible. If you look at a lot of apps, especially like e-commerce apps and stuff like that, you'll find that other than the kind of the navigation controls and the tab bar and stuff like that, a lot of the content is rendered almost the same as their mobile website if it's done well. The question you might ask is, why would the content in a mobile app need to be different than the website? Like, shouldn't a good experience on that device factor be good on both platforms? As far as the differences between Astro and React Native is an environment that, I guess it does two things. It bridges JavaScript calls to native calls, and it provides the whole React style of programming where you program against like a virtual UI, and then it takes care of updating the UI based on the changes between them. Ours is more, ours is not that style. I don't know, Loki might have a better answer to that.
I can ask one about what's the difference between us and React. Like, for the most part, the kind of way that I say it is like, we almost have the same solution, but we're trying to solve two different problems. A lot of our customers cannot use React Native because they do not have an API. So to them, imagine you're Nordstrom or Lululemon, not Lululemon has an API, but imagine these companies that don't have an API and they want to pay now. And by the way, they spend like $500,000 building an e-commerce mobile website. For them to use React Native is, they just can't, they don't have an API for it. We can use React Native in our SDK. It's designed to use web or native screens where it makes sense. But that for us is a pretty big constraint we have.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So can you talk about how the WK WebView talk to JavaScript? Because you said that you can understand the post request, but is it something we can achieve by talk to the JavaScript to get those posts?
You probably could. So the question is, talk about how you surface native methods into the JavaScript environment. So, how much time do you have? No, you're good. Okay. So with UI WebView, the way that you communicate to the native side is you change the URL that you're on. Basically, you do a window or a location.href equals, and your native side will get the delegate callback to say, hey, the WebView wants to navigate to this new URL. Do you want to let it? And you can say yes or no, and if you say no, you just stay on that same page. The way we do it in Astro, and I think it's kind of common with Cordova too, is that when we get that, we take that as a ping to go and talk to the JavaScript environment and pull out the information that we need. With WK WebView, you can actually bridge native methods into the JavaScript environment and then call them directly in JavaScript. So you can just call a method in JavaScript, and the platform will bridge it over to the native method and serialize the parameters for you. So I guess theoretically, you could hijack the host and then serialize the form data and send it over to the native side. I'm not sure how it would work on the way back though. But yeah, might be possible. Is there a question?
Yeah, do you use there's an explosion of classes that WKW provides. Do you see that as, is Apple trying to provide an alternative to UIKit, or is it more just like collection view to a table view, just like they're just like YouTube anything, like I don't know, like are they positioning themselves to allow that alternative and to make that alternative as viable as they?
Okay, so the question is let me see if I can.
Yeah, sorry.
So is Apple kind of positioning WK WebView to be more of a programming platform for web? I don't think that's the case. I think it's just that they gave you more dials and knobs to turn. You get a back-forward list, so you can, I haven't played with it, but there's like a navigation list. You can see what the navigation history was from the native side without going and asking the WebView through JavaScript, like giving you history. So there's more configurability and more ways to customize the behavior of the WebView. But I don't really think it's
also the person who designed that API was more type crazy than the person who designed the UI WebView one in like a fever dream in like a AA.
They're exposing more, but you're also responsible.
Yeah, so it's more like a collection view to a table view than.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a good way to say it. Yeah. Or choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Headaches.
Choice. It's more work, right? More money. All right, any other questions? Good.
Thank you. I was going to plug in, but Sam's probably just going to come in here and plug in anyhow. We've got an interesting presentation here from Sam H. Ward. He actually gave this presentation, or a larger version of it, at a Learns at Lunch recently.
View. Right. Oh, you're right.
Yeah. It's really interesting and very applicable to what we're dealing with right now. So I asked Sam if he would share this with the greater group, and of course he was very excited to do so. Sound needs to be sound there. No, we got clicking cookies. Yeah, lots of clicking cookies.
So it's going to be loud.
We'll find out.
Needs something to exist, but it doesn't. That's where developers like you get their best ideas. Maybe you're building a mobile app that'll change the world. Maybe it also has to work on the web or the desktop. Maybe it's an internet-connected toaster. Doesn't matter. What matters is you know it needs to exist. You can definitely handle the front end, but what about the back end? Configuring servers, managing databases, writing APIs, storing videos, authenticating users, building deployment processes, and so on and so on. Sure, you can figure out how to do that stuff yourself, or maybe hire someone to deal with it for you. But here's a better way. Parse. Parse is the smartest way to turn your brilliant idea into a seamless cross-platform experience. Want to store and sync data in the cloud? Handle user authentication? Track how many people are using your app? Drop in third-party integrations? Parse can help you do all that fast. Need a smarter way to talk to your users? Parse makes it easy to send push notifications to your entire user base, a targeted group, or just one person. Suddenly have a ton of new users? Parse is built to scale up, way up, without a hitch. And you can keep tabs on everything from a single dashboard. Parse is all about making your idea the best it can be, doing things you thought might be out of reach, going further, faster. Your idea needs to exist. Let's build it with Parse.
Yeah, so I just found that video a couple of days ago, and it was posted to YouTube, I think December last year, and then they announced they were shutting down last January of this year. I thought that was kind of funny. But no, did that sound like Terry Crews to anyone else? Yeah, anyway. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Parse. And so, is anyone here using Parse? And what about Parse Server? No? Okay. So, as some of you might know, Parse announced they were shutting down. I want to talk about why this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This might actually be a good thing. And yeah, why as iOS developers, it's kind of worth your time to check out this new Pass server technology. So for those of you who don't know what Pass is, quickly imagine you're trying to create an app, maybe a social media app or some sort of app that requires user accounts and sharing data online. So for an independent iPhone developer, you might have to set up servers, databases, authenticate users. It's a lot to manage for a mobile developer, right? You want to focus on the application. So before Pass, like imagine a decade ago, this is what you would have to do. But now, or since I think 2011, Pass came out, and their purpose was to abstract all of this messy server stuff away. So mobile developers can just focus on making mobile apps great. It makes developing apps really easy by taking the back end completely out of your hands. And simplify even more, Pass gives us SDKs. They've included an SDK for iOS here. So they've managed this back end, and you might think, all right, well, I've got to create these HTTP requests to access data. No, you drop in the API, you create these Pass objects, you tell them to save themselves, and you trust that they will save. You can trust, well, yeah. For the most part, you can trust that. When you query objects, again, you're not dealing with JSON. You query, you get back this nice Pass object, you're accessing it like an object in your mobile app. And users, as soon as a user is logged in and created, you just have access to this user object. Again, it's object, not this data from the web. So that made it really, really easy to use for mobile developers. So as you can imagine, Pass became popular, more people started using it. So they started adding more features. One of them was push notifications. Anyone use push notifications in their app? It's very nice. This is just taken care of by Pass. You can even batch push notifications out to every user if you want to. Cloud code. This was a really good one. So if you needed to add extra server logic, if Pass wasn't quite enough, you needed some logic out there, write a little bit of JavaScript, deploy it to Pass, and it will run for your app. An example of this would be great if you have business logic that needs to be updated, but you don't want to update your mobile app. You can just throw some JavaScript on the server, it'll run, it works. And Pass Dashboard, which was a great web interface for accessing your database data, for managing it in a very nice way. Yeah, so Pass got popular, they added more features, and this made it really difficult when they announced that they were shutting down. It was actually at Two Tall Towns where I work. It was a tough day because we use Pass a lot. When this happened, Bahan, who works with us, got so upset he actually had to go for a walk and think things through. So this kind of sucked at the time. But Pass said, this is okay. We're going to give you something new. It's called Pass Server. It's open source. It's going to be great. Didn't believe them at the time, but as I've been looking into it, it's not a bad thing. So Pass Server, like I said, is this new project. It's separate from the hosted Pass API. At a very high level, it's basically the same as the old Pass. The simplicity is still there. The only difference there is that you have to host it yourself. But it runs with Node.js, which is a good thing. And you might be thinking, well, now you have to go learn Node, and there's an extra technology there. But to be honest, you learn a tiny bit of Node just to get yourself started with this. It's JavaScript stuff. It's not that difficult. And then Node has one of the biggest communities I've ever seen. So when it comes time to hosting your Pass app, you think of it as, well, I got to host this Node app. How do I host a Node app? Google it. You'll get millions of results on how to put a Node app on Heroku, AWS, DigitalOcean, your laptop, whatever. So yeah, it's a good thing. And then it's open source. That's nice. So it already has the whole Pass team dedicated to it right now, which is great. They're throwing out new features all the time. More than 60 contributors from all over the world. This is great. if you wanted to add a new feature, or if anyone in the world wants to add new features, fix bugs, you can go ahead and do it. And over 9,000 styles on GitHub. What that really means is it's got a large community. People are interested in it. People want it to be good. So when you choose to use Parse Server, you can feel a little bit of comfort knowing, all right, so we're on it. It's also much better than the old Parse servers, for those of you that are using the old Parse. A lot more features. So one of, actually my top favorite one there is that if you're ever running that JavaScript cloud code, adding extra functionality, you used to have to deploy your code to Parse, then test it if there was a bug, deploy new code to Parse, test it, oh, there's a typo, so it was a hassle. Now you can just set up a Parse server instance on your laptop, write some code, write a test. If it passes, you upload it to the network. If it doesn't, you write code to make it pass. So that's really been handy for us. You can now host wherever and whatever and on whatever you want. So you used to be, I think it was AWS East Coast of the States. If your total audience is in Asia and you want to deploy in Asia, now you can. You were using Parse's pricing metric. You want a cheaper option, spin up DigitalOcean somewhere. You have all this control now, and there's a lot. I'm not going to go through all these, but controlling your database as well is kind of nice. You can forget that Parse even has a database, and it will just manage it for you, or you can get right in there, start creating rules, start creating custom indexes. So there's a lot of good things that Parse Server offers that were never possible with Parse. So in my honest opinion, there's never been a better time to start using Parse. I want to go through how easy it is to get running on Heroku with this, because as iOS does, we just want to get it running, start writing our mobile app. So all I've done here is I've logged into Heroku. I'm going to go create a new app. I have to name this correctly because, okay. So I create a new app. So in Heroku, I can go to this resources tab right here, and I am just going to add a Mongo database using MLab, which researches Mongo as a service. Good if you don't want to actually manage your Mongo database, if you want that just to be managed in work, MLab. They're sandbox, they're free tier, so just including that. This is all free, by the way. So we're on the free tier of Heroku and MLab. So you can run this and not pay any money. It does have to sleep for 6 hours for every 24-hour period, and we haven't run into any issues with that yet. No one's using our app, all hours a day. But we are in the early stage. This is just for testing. So yeah, okay. So I'm just going to go into this deploy section here. My app's on GitHub. I think everyone's apps are on GitHub. So you just go in. Let's would pass something. Yeah, there it is. So I'm just going to connect my app here, and I'm going to deploy it to the master branch. I doubt this will take too long, but yeah, I have a very simple application on GitHub. Just a little bit of JavaScript. I actually have it there. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's a little bit of code. JavaScript. It's not that much to get running with set up with Parse Server. Just wait for that. This will come through quickly.
Does MLab have any of those restrictions that Parse had?
Like
query times and numbers of things, so they play the crazy.
So yeah, basically you want to put caps on that yourself sometimes, but there are 0 restrictions that Parse used to enforce. Parse used to enforce like you could only query for 1,000 objects. It would time out after 3 seconds on forsake hooks and all this stuff. You can do whatever you want now, which I think is nice because I hate those limitations, especially the 3 second. Alright, so this has deployed. I guess I can use it, so it's working. Awesome, that's my home page. So all I've done here is, in my example app, I do have a test page that just kind of tests that it's all working. I stole this from Parse's example project. So that posted an object. It fetched it, and it tested a cargo function. Also, my pass server is running that. Took a minute, maybe two. And I have the pass dashboard running on my laptop here that should be connected to that right now. Yep. And I can view that. There's the object I posted. So it's extremely simple to get started using pass server. But if you want to get your hands dirty, if you really want to get in there, you have complete control. Yeah, and that is me. This is also a link to a public repo where you can grab some example project and dashboard example, and in the wikis there's some guides on how to get started as well. So any questions? Yeah.
How do you get around push notifications with the parse server?
They just work like they don't use the overpass.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same. You follow the guide to create certificates on your Mac, and then you just include that on the server. So it would have to be part of the bundle that goes on Roku, but then it just works the same.
Oh, cool.
You can't do any push notifications from your iPhone and your mobile apps. They will have to be done through cloud code. But it's basically the same.
How do you move a large data set from one instance to another?
Like the database Heroku or Mongo. Yeah, so Parse has that kind of set up, and they have pretty extensive guides on how to do it. But I think basically you just go into parse.com, go to your app, go to like the settings section, and there's a button that says like migrate, and I think you just kind of enter where you want it to migrate to, and it will do that for you. And then you modify, I guess, some of your cloud code so that every new data goes to your new database running.
When they said they were shutting Parse down, did you investigate Firebase or any other services before when the Parse service?
We checked out a lot of stuff, yeah. We even had a phone call with AWS to try and talk about Mobile Hub. And not saying that they're like bad options, but for us, this was definitely the best option, especially since Parse's SDKs are definitely our favorites. They're so simple to just drop in our iPhone apps and get working with. AWS Mobile Hub was not that simple, and I think Vincent tried downloading it. There was a big package that we had to put in our app, so it wasn't as friendly for the mobile developers.
We're talking like we have 40 apps that we have to involve first. This was some serious homework to recognize and share some of our pains that we've learned as well.
Have they publicly said they're going to stand behind this so that they won't put the same way that Parse did? Parse server?
It's open source.
It's open source.
Oh yeah.
So really, nothing bad could ever happen as long as you're deploying on a server. nothing. Let me think like that. It can't just go away. It can't just disappear. It
It started as a Facebook product, right?
The what?
Parse, wasn't it?
It was bought by Facebook.
It was bought by Facebook.
What are the points of scale? Where do you it looks like you're using Mongo as a service as your database backend. What about like API requests? Do you ever need to do you ever need to have like multiple instances, or is it just
Exactly. So as your app grows, you'll need multiple instances, load balancing, all that stuff. Use something like Roku or Google App Engine or Amazon's version. That will all be done for you. That's why I use Roku as an example. It's easy to get set up. But yeah, if you imagine your own service, you would need to manage the scaling and all that stuff.
Don't use your own servers.
I just want to mention Azure actually has a hook button launched in the marketplace to run on their cloud service, and they're giving free data because they use their Cognitive DB backends for the storage, and they're giving free data at the end of the month for anyone who moves over.
Yeah. No, I looked at this one and it was pretty cool. Yeah, and there's a bunch of options out there for kind of getting up and running with parts, alternatives, and all that stuff. I just like going through this using Heroku because I wanted to write a little bit of my Node app, just deploy it, know what was going on. Those click to deploys, I don't like clicking them because it just magically